hit it, man. Hello and a warm welcome to the CRMKonvo show. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are at your own screen in the depending time zone. Today we have the pleasure that we have our dear friend Martin Schneider again as a guest. He has visited us several times already and he is regularly welcomed and seen friend of ours in our show, and it's always a lot of fun. It's entertaining and it's always extremely knowledgeable. We had him in his roles in Sugar CRM, Support Logic and ANNUITAS, and as an expert on all the topics we cross in our conversations. Martin is Vice President and Principal Analyst at Constellation Research. And it was a big fun fact when one of the former interesting shows we had, Martin was switching roles and he knew already that he will become a constellation analyst, principal analyst, but couldn't give his other candidate such an honest approach as I will be one of your colleagues next time. His career spans both analysts and marketing practitioner roles, primarily focused on high technology and related industries. He started his career as a journalist covering B2B technologies and quickly transitioned into leading analyst roles covering application software for the 451 Group in New York. This is where our dear friend Marshall Larger went into him, such as that were the place where you met. After analyzing the go-to-market strategies of dozens of technology vendors, Schneider moved to the vendor side, where he led successfully go-to-market teams for several startups and established tech providers. And he tested the love of sugar twice. It was so sweet that he came back, and it was an important role when we had him in one of his roles at Sugar as a guest as well, and it was entertaining. In his current role at Constellation Research, Martin produces research and analysis around modern go-to-market and growth strategies for a broad set of B2B professionals. He advises them on the impact of AI in growth operations, CRM, Salesforce automation, and customer success technologies. And now you come with us onto the spot of revenue intelligence, an opportunity to get new chances at your fingertips at your service. And that is where we would love to dive in together with Martin. Martin, what did I miss in the introduction part?
I don't think anything. I think maybe I got a perfect attendance award in second grade. I went to school every day. That's about it. I think you really, I feel like it's my whole life story. No,
music, dads, motorcycles.
Yeah, but yeah, some guitars, motorcycles,
Guitars,
you know, world tours, things like that. But other than those very minor things, the exciting thing you covered all the stuff of my technology analysis and go to market experience. Yeah, I think that's that's obviously been what I've been all about for a while. And I think the last thing you said is the most important thing, is where, we've taken this approach that used to be, well, sales was sales, marketing was marketing, customer support was customer support, customer success didn't exist. And we looked at those metrics in silos. We looked at our workflows in kind of silos there, departmental and like org charts we looked at kind of in weird, like up and down rather than in jobs to be done and end to end. And a lot of that's changing, and AI is helping a lot. It's scaring a lot of people and it's disrupting a lot, but it is also helping when we look at at our growth optimization from a full journey perspective and optimizing both the efficiency and the effectiveness of our growth operations. And that's what's been really exciting, talking about that with both the vendors who are making it happen from a tech perspective and the enterprises that we work with at Constellation, who are looking to not just digitize. We used to talk about digital transformation. Now it's business transformation. And now we're getting to that kind of exponential efficiency types of productivity gains in the age of AI. And that's what's been really exciting, helping businesses kind of take that next leap.
I would like to
the door right away. Digitizing, digitalization, digital transformation. Give us 3 definitions, succinct in your typical style.
Well, I mean, look, digitizing, it's funny because what happened, right? People digitized first, right? Which meant they took very manual things and analog concepts and just digitized them, right? Like turning a physical Rolodex into a CRM, right? Or, into a contact management. Did that really give us productivity gains from any exponential level? No, not at all, right? And then when we actually started to get CRM created and workflows, and we started to join the idea of account records and contacts and leads, and and really kind of put this idea of a full journey, customer lifecycle engagement strategy, we started to get to transformation, right? And that's we didn't just think about making these things digital, taking things we used to do manually, putting them into the cloud or whatever. Now AI is taking that and putting it to the next level, right? Agentic, generative, and just really every vibe coding, right? Everything where we can do these things in ways that what used to take hours takes seconds. What used to take, weeks takes days. What used to take months takes weeks, and getting that, let's get orders of magnitude better in what we're doing, but not just in the actual deployment and maintenance of technology, but actually how it transforms our business, right? And that's what we're trying to do. And I think the topic of today, revenue intelligence, I think that's an interesting thing because we really didn't even have the capability to do what revenue intelligence promises even 5 years ago. Nobody was there. And we're only now scratching the surface of the capability of what revenue intelligence can promise for a large enterprise.
Just in 1 minute, what is revenue intelligence by all means in 2026? And what is it not by your definition?
Sure thing. I mean, I'll start with what it's not. That's always a little easier, right? It's not just a new name for CRM, right? It's not just a new name for sales automation. It's not just a new name for analytics, because it has to take in a lot of different data points. It incorporates workflow. It does a lot of things that your old systems just didn't do well or didn't do at all, right? And it means a little bit different depending on what industry you're in, what is your go-to-market model. But in my mind, to put it kind of broadly, and then we can dig in from a definition perspective, it's taking, it's the enablement technology for your go-to-market operations to take an orchestration of engagement across the entire journey to create expansion mindsets and optimize customer lifetime value for every single customer, right? And that we really couldn't do that before because, like I said, there was bad data, siloed workflows, siloed departments. And AI tends to help break those down in ways that we can pull signals and extract signals from one part of the business that helps another part of the business and share them proactively in ways that we couldn't even collect them, let alone identify them or share them before. And now, you can actually take action at the right time with the right customer, do the right thing in ways that the customer usually doesn't even identify themselves, right? Based on, being able to track behaviors, customer actions, intent, the unstructured data that happens in phone calls that used to never make it into a CRM. All that gives us such a wealth of information, signals, actionable insights, whatever you want to call it, to take action across the entire life cycle, but also to create a much more collaborative and, I said, kind of cross-departmental approach so that you are being strategic with every account, right? And that's the idea. It's like CRM is now becoming kind of like strategic account management rather than opportunity management, where if I didn't put the information in there, it kind of doesn't exist anymore, right? It's black boxed, right? So little rambling there, but that's kind of a definition.
Now that you already used workflow for RI, like revenue intelligence, which suggests that it is closer to an analytics function than an operations function. How would you delimit, not eliminate, not delaminate? This is what happens somewhere else.
Yeah.
How would you delimit revenue intelligence from revenue operations?
Yeah, I think that's a really good. That's a good distinction, right? RevOps is a bit has jobs to be done. It's RevOps is still in kind of the legacy definitions. It's kind of like, where do the operations around go-to-market and key sales functions happen? Your deal desk, other things like that. Like RevOps still exists. It's going to exist in the way that it has, and obviously it's transforming in the age of AI as well. So this is why I have I've got a like revenue platform shortlist with Constellation, and now a new revenue intelligence shortlist, because these vendors do different things, right? There are the core operations of like managing the things that happen in the flow of what I would say like known opportunity, management, right? Like we got to red line contracts. We got to look at there's negotiation, there's discounting, there's all these things. And there's different types of technology that helps that. What I'm talking about is kind of a higher level of kind of to your analytics point of like, how do we understand signals and get to the right people across, like outside of like what we would call RevOps, deal desk, people like that, to make the right decisions, to be proactive and help the customer. So it's a little broader. So it's that democratization of like customer insights, actionable insights in ways that RevOps can use them too, but it's still distinct. It's even a broader concept, right? Because it's a team sport, right? It's like everybody needs to be involved. Where I still think those RevOps platforms are very important, but they're important for a certain set of jobs to be done. Where the broader set of revenue intelligence is like, hey, how does customer success transform from the traditional idea of like our technology is basically QBR meeting prep tools and some other workflows around that. So like, hey, how can I work with the AE and change some of the way we do our business and how we actually structure compensation and everything to be more collaborative, proactive, and expansion mindset, rather than, oh, we just capture the renewal. We make sure that we try to add a little bit, how do we actually strategize around this rather than take it tactically? Sorry.
So in contrast to guys like Tony Kaskinen, who has a RevOps company, actually, I guess you know him, yeah? You would say that RevOps is very salesy, while revenue intelligence is all-encompassing across the customer-facing processes of a company?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, the hard part is it could be maybe like a tougher sell, because you've got to get the buy-in, you kind of need it like CEO and everyone, where like RevOps is like, yeah, we got our CRO, we need a RevOps, So I mean but that's very much in the how these vendors sell, right? But I do think, yeah, it's much broader, because you're, from a data perspective, you're bringing in information that will trigger the things that then go into the RevOps. You know what I mean? It's just it's incorporating a kind of broader end-to-end process set of like the life cycle of the customer and optimizing that relationship in a way that is like win-win. Where RevOps is really, not in a bad way, it's very important. RevOps is really like, it's focused in on like, what are the deals we're actually doing? What's our pipeline? What are these things? And it's not a subset. It's just a very coexisting part of what I would call a holistic go-to-market tech stack, right? You should have both, right? If you're a large enough enterprise, you should have your RevOps management and optimization, and they're going to feed each other, right? So that's where I think there's a subtle but important distinction there.
Isn't it a fair assessment that one needs revenue intelligence to do revenue operations?
Yes and no, right? Can you run a RevOps platform without what I would define as a revenue intelligence platform? Yeah, technically yes, because what are you doing, right? You're taking what the salespeople put in the CRM, throw it into the RevOps, and you're being a little collaborative there and trying to optimize, how well every deal gets done in terms of, optimizing cost of goods sold, margin, blah blah blah, discounting, things like that. You can do it, right? But how do you make it more efficient? How do you make it more productive? How do you do it in a way that, okay, now we already understand so much about the customer, what their preferences are, what they've done in the past, what are the contracts they've signed, what are the red lines they've made, what are all the things that they've done, and then automate that so that like the deal desk manager, the RevOps director, whatever the title is, right, can look at this, and what usually takes them like 3 hours takes them 3 minutes, right? That's kind of revenue intelligence can feed that. That's what I'm talking about, them feeding each other in a much more symbiotic manner.
Okay, makes sense.
From the signals to the action, I was curious that you have several landscape observations done. Where do you see for a CRO, what is the minimal viable revenue intelligence stack he should take in place and should get in place, and what can wait without hurting the outcomes? That would be a question I would like to ask you.
Yeah, I think, well, there's a couple tools out there. I think, honestly, it depends on your approach, because some of it is already there, right? Like when you take a company like Sugar CRM, which is like focusing on manufacturing above all, right? And it's sales eye acquisition. Now inside the CRM, their take on AI, where their kind of prompts and like side co-pilot views are really, it's like sales eye in action, right? Showing you, hey, how do we optimize revenue for the customers that we already know we're going to do business with this year? These guys are not, they're not doing like big Marketo or marketing campaigns to get new, they're not looking at 12,000 leads down to like, 400 every month. No, they know who they're going to do business with. They just need to optimize the business they do. So that's already there. So like if you're a Sugar user, the mandate is to start using that stuff and make sure that that's active. Because you're probably in manufacturing. You're probably looking to optimize your customer relationships because you know how difficult it is to deal with them, and you're facing other margin pressures like tariff uncertainty and blah 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 blah, right? For your supply chain and things like that. So yeah, you can already take advantage of it. Now, if you're a larger operation, you might be looking at, well, how do I optimize my pricing in ways that go beyond my traditional CPQ, right? And when you look at, that entire kind of like quote, pre-quote, almost like lead to close, but that insight where you're really looking to optimize that stuff, and you look at now where pros and conga are coming together and things like that. So there's really interesting stuff. I mean, I would say take a look at my revenue intelligence shortlist that like just published, I think a week ago.
Okay.
And you can start to see some of the vendors there that are becoming really critical, right? And it's not a lot. Like I could have taken a very broad swath and said, yeah, like there's like probably like at least 3 dozen vendors that would use the revenue intelligence terminology. I think I have like 7 on there, maybe
8.
Yeah, is it 8?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Yeah,
8.
I mean, that's the list in front of me.
Yeah, that's pretty narrow. Look, there's some analyst firms and even some of our own where some of our short lists are like 25. Is that a short list, right? And then some are like 4, right? And I think I think this one I tried to be as because it's my first one. I think I wanted the people who I looked at but didn't make it to give me a better argument maybe for the next rev. Not a better argument, but a more complete and to like show me you should be on here, because I think the ones that are on there have definitely proven the mettle through proof in the pudding, from seeing them in live deployment, seeing them, they're mature, that kind of thing. They're not just a bunch of like what we call AI exponentials, right? Like kind of AI native startups who might have like 200 million in revenue already, which is insane because some of them are doing that fairly quickly in like 2 years. But have robust tools that integrate well with the ecosystem of CRM and RevOps and customer success and things like that. So I think again, it really comes down to the use case of like what's critical, because again, when I think of like revenue optimization or what I call growth optimization, more importantly, in the age of AI, you're looking to do kind of 2 things, right? You're looking to find that like, where's that AI discovered revenue, right? Where are those signals and things we talked about where you probably wouldn't have found that deal, or you probably wouldn't have optimized that deal in that way? So that's giving you margin help on the top. And then how are you reducing your cost of goods sold? Like, how are you reducing the cost of sales, right? So it's like, so how are you like fattening your margin at both ends, right? And that's the type of thing. So when you look at the companies that are on that short list, you can kind of start to realize which ones do which one. And that's the important part. So what's important for you? Am I a younger company that needs to kind of grow, not at all costs, but like I need new business, right? I got to get my book of business going. Well, then you can see which ones are going to be critical for you, right? Like the ones that are going to discover new revenue opportunities for you while also optimizing the ones you have. Now, are you a legacy B2B business that isn't out there looking for tons of new customers every month or year? Well, then you're looking to optimize what you're doing and create that customer lifetime value approach that really does bring the margin up that way. So you can see by just going to their websites which ones do which.
You started off with that depends, and then you mentioned the vendor that you probably are most comfortable with, Sugar CRM, which is coincidentally one of the vendors on this short list.
Yeah.
Now, let's look at two other ones. So we see Gong and Salesforce, which are two very different beasts, also from a revenue intelligence point of view. What makes them comparable, or on the other hand, differentiates them in terms of revenue operations?
I think what's interesting about this short list, I think it's the most varied approaches. If you look at all of our short lists, everybody's kind of doing the same thing, and we're just saying like, well, if this is your use case or this is the thing you want to do, here's like a few vendors that kind of all do it. This is the one where I think is kind of the most varied in terms of like how does this aid revenue intelligence, right? Because let's take Gong and Salesforce, right? Like Salesforce, of course, has a stake in revenue intelligence, right? Because not only do they as a company have analytics tools, Tableau and others, and as well as obviously all their AI around Agentforce and Einstein and all that kind of stuff, but what they're building in Sales Cloud, I mean, they're building a much more collaborative, understanding full journey tool. Their account planning capabilities and the little central accounting, the deal workspaces that can be collaborative between partners, the customer as well as users, the Salesforce user, the company selling, really cool stuff, right? And then you take Gong, right? That approach is like, all right, let's get all the data in from all your interactions and understand what the heck your customers are really asking for, and understand how are we addressing that? Are we performing well, right? So it's taking this almost like engagement approach and analyzing the engagement to optimize that while also taking in signals that can feed CRM and analytics and other things, right? So again, it's like we're still getting that same thing, right? AI discovered revenue as well as better margins on terms of our operations, operating margins, but just different approaches. So the larger enterprises are going to have multiple, like I said, there's no silver bullet, right? So most vendors are going to have Salesforce and Gong and even Zoom, right? Zoom bringing its revenue accelerator and understanding that, like how do they pull signals and how do they find that? Because again, the workflow and the triggers and finding it in places that are easy. Like where do salespeople live? They either live in Outlook, sometimes they're CRM, and then in Zoom, right? That's probably where they are most of their day. So as these guys build these tools, they need to not only be, effective, but they actually have to work together as well. Because there's also that kind of like meta layer of like management executives, like getting that, again, taking that step back, looking strategically, looking for trends, looking for that, because there's like the micro level trend of like, what is customer X doing? And me as the salesperson who owns that account or the customer success person, how do I optimize that? But then it's how do we aggregate this to take better action in terms of like how we build out our teams, how we think of our policies, how we do discounting policies, how do we do trade promotions, blah, 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 right? So they need to work together, right? And that's where that kind of data intelligence layer is part of it too, right?
I was just wondering, because you and Thomas have been recently at the Zoho days, where would you see them as we had a little expedition to Sugar? Where would you place Zoho?
I think like right now, today, Zoho's in the process of becoming a company that can offer revenue intelligence capabilities for small and mid-sized businesses at a simplicity and price point that will be incredibly compelling. But they're in that process, right? That's their vision. Because today, you're still looking at 55, 60 Zoho One apps that are starting to work together and they're starting to unify their platform. But as they do that, and their App OS concept, which I don't even know if it's announced. I don't know if we're supposed to be talking about it or not, but I'll take the slap on the wrist, right? But it's really cool, right? Because now they're doing data unification, platform unification, workflow unification, business context, creating this understanding layer and this meta layer around that. So again, not only now are you having a much more seamless kind of UX experience for users, but for, developers, for kind of owners and just the workflows, it's becoming more end to end, where before it was very siloed because they just kind of built these things and said, hey, or have them, right? Now it's, it's much more strategic. And now you're going to be, in the future, they've got data lake houses, they've got, multi-form databases are going to be distributed. So again, like whether you're a global business or a smaller business, they're going to have all that, sitting there in this intelligence layer that you can build. Really kind of exciting, right? So I think that's going to be, where they're going is really exciting. They're not there yet, and they've got 1 million customers that they have to bring there with them. So they've got a lot of work cut out for them. But if they pull it off, fairly interesting. As they become, we talk about that exponential efficiency where, it's not just about gaining things and doing like 10x. It's also doing 1/10, right? Meaning, how do I get all my CRM, all my HR, all my other things for 1/10 of the price? Well, with Zoho One, you can do that. And now they're bringing ERP into the fold at a price that's like insanely low, right? So now I can actually now bring all that ERP data into this native platform where nobody in our world can do well, right? It's not native. SAP has it, but it's like not really for that world of, mid-size where they're playing. Salesforce doesn't have it. It's just they're not ERP players, right? Oracle's got it, but again, it's for the Oracle world. Microsoft is super integrated. It's still through acquisition, right? But they're building it on all their own stuff, and it's going to be on this SAP OS. It's going to be exciting to be able to pull all that ERP data, as well as marry that with all the CRM, the HR, all that data, their communications and things like that, and all that interaction data, put that against Zia, put that with the business context layer. That's going to bring some really cool insights to the fore, right? So they've got work to do, but that vision is really, really cool. That was one of the most impressive Zoho days. Usually they bring us together and they're like, here's what we're doing, here's how we're saving the world. And you're like, okay, cool. But now I think really they've got a lot of work cut out for them, but I think they know the work. I mean, look, they're building some of their own hardware, like I said, which is going to make their ability to offer like customized, verticalized AI solutions like faster, better, cheaper than anybody, because it's not like they're just open AI or Anthropic or things like that. So really, really cool in what they're doing to build, full journey engagement and orchestration of engagement in ways that a lot of mid-size focused providers just are like so far away from. So really cool. I was really impressed.
Now that we are doing vendor stuff, which is a good thing, because after all, we are analysts, right?
Yeah.
Will this be a specialist game or rather a platform game?
I think everyone will have to have the platform, but I think the wars will be won in the verticals, right? In that, again, because as you start to specialize around industries because of the AI and the models, and as people started to bring their own models into it and have that embedded into the solutions that they're offering, it's like, you have to have that platform. It has to be unified and all that. But the people who have the best, specialized, purpose-built AI for the industries that they address and nail those industries, they're going to win in those industries. And the great thing is that you can be pretty broad with that. Retail. That's automotive, that means a lot of different things, right? So I think manufacturing, right? So, you can win in like 2 industries and be a multi-billion-dollar company, right? In this age, even when the SaaS fees are going to get down and down and down and down, right? You're going to be winning outcomes and the value you provide with that specialized AI, not just white labeling generic LLMs.
No, it's not only about LLMs, and they are all doing industry. Look at the vendors, big and small. Some are doing many industries, others are focusing, like Sugar, they are really focusing down on manufacturing and trade, basically. So, but still, that doesn't make them necessarily specialist in revenue intelligence or revenue operations. So again, the revenue intelligence game, will that be a game for?
I think the revenue intelligence vendors will still stay pretty broad.
Okay.
But I think, because you're going to have the broad-based revenue intelligence vendors. They just go after the biggest companies in the world because they're going to have the most data, the most point, and then the most outputs to consider. But I think for like the people who have revenue intelligence inside like their CRM, it's going to come down to some of their vertical. Well, you look at Creatio, right? Creatio is really kind of focusing on like 5 verticals right now, right? So they're going to optimize that. Now they got John Bruno just came over from Pros. He's gonna revamp their manufacturing and do all that, right? And that's going to have a revenue intelligence angle to it, right?
Yeah.
Because, especially in manufacturing, because like I said, you really need to optimize every account because you're not adding a lot, right? So like, how do you find growth when you've got to find growth because your operations margins have to be better as well as how much you sell to every customer, right? So how do you get that? Because some people, the customer has multiple suppliers. How do you eliminate them going in the middle of the year, this part or that part for someone else because you missed that opportunity, right? How do you do that, right? So I think he'll have and he's got a great background in that kind of stuff, come from Pros, right? So it'll be interesting.
Stuff.
Yeah, so you've got this, you've got these vertical focuses for the kind of like more CRM providers, but then the revenue intelligence, the more broader guys like Gong, Zoom, those guys are going to bring that from a more generic sense around the use case of like, what is that metric you're looking to do, right? Is it CLTV? Is it, is it cost of goods sold? Like, what are you trying to optimize? And they can help you with that, right? They're going to pull those signals out. So there will be a generic kind of platform, like you said, that overlay to your CRM, to your ERP and all that. And then the ones that are kind of inside who specifically focus on, I would say, like SMB and SME companies, they're gonna have it in there, but it's going to be verticalized heavily because again, that use case and that metric and things like that is going to vary by vertical.
Including verticals. Do you see a necessity or at least a force for smaller specialist vendors? Like the Gong is a specialist, Clary is a specialist, Salesloft another one. Would there be a kind of a force for them to lean into one or few of the bigger platform vendors in order to not be cut off by them?
I mean, yeah, I guess. I mean, I think for them, a lot of those companies started selling to SaaS companies because that was the go-to-market model that they could really cling on to, and it made sense, right? Because you had a couple of unique factors of that. But now that everybody kind of sells that way, they can go a little broader. They can do a lot of that stuff. So, but I think, I mean, maybe, but I think it's more they've just got to continue to provide differentiation and value because what are they facing? They're facing big companies like Salesforce, Oracle, SAP, and others that know they've got to do the same thing, right? SAP's working on agentic tools to optimize, revenue optimization against the very good data that's in your ERP, right? And instead of thinking, it's almost like they could forget every CX thing they did and push agentic out from their ERP and reinvent their go-to-market for what are called CX, revenue intelligence, any of that stuff, almost from scratch using Joule and other tools, because they've got a foundation of data that is typically very good, right? Like you look at like Salesforce's sales data is like, okay, but then they've got Data Cloud. And then you look at ServiceNow, it's like, it's got better data because it's got real customer stuff, real products. Well, you got to understand how to fix this stuff and do all these things. Then you got like a company like SAP. It's like, Salesforce, the data's bad. Someone maybe gets fired. ServiceNow, same thing, right? ERP, the data's bad. Someone goes to jail, right? So it's like, or people go out of business, right? So it's like, bad things happen. So you've got much more of a mandate to have better data. So for them working on that legacy and foundation of like pretty good data, and then pushing that out, and then leveraging a lot of their kind of new data cloud and their data fabric stuff, they've got opportunities to reinvent some really cool things. So, and the revenue optimization side of it, revenue intelligence, whatever you want to call it, they can do that too. And they can do it again for like B2B manufacturing at even a higher level, say, than like a Zoho typically goes after, right? And really retain and grow their install base revenue in exciting ways. And I know they're doing that now, right? They're starting that. Their last it's not Sapphire, but the other one they do, the event that they do in Vegas, that was I was really like enlightened from that one too. I was like, wow, like SAP kind of gets the ground they have to cover, and they're doing a good job of it. I think they're meeting with analysts right now. Like some of my team, they get like one or two analysts from like every firm. Since I'm like the newest analyst covering this stuff, I'm not there right now. But
Yeah,
they're meeting with SAP. SAP's meeting with analysts right now to talk about a lot of this, right? So I think every vendor got an interesting approach on what they would kind of call some form of like revenue optimization or intelligence, right? And I think because everyone has to, right? Because that's what everyone cares about now, right? Systems of record are boring, they're commoditized. You know, you have to systems of engagement, that's almost even like out of date. It's like, where's my outcomes, man? Where, you know, if I'm going to pay for premiums for data and AI, you know, kind of throughput and workflow, give me some outcomes and make sure that they're good, right? Make sure you're really helping me. So I think that's where we're shifting.
The outcomes are my buzzword, which triggers me. Exactly.
It's hard.
Yeah, it's the fun part, such as a lot of number crunching CROs and CEOs are looking for the reliability of what they get out of the system, the outcomes. What would be 3 executive metrics which would tell you that your revenue intelligence is working across the entire life cycle properly? What would be your suggestion to look for?
Net dollar retention increases, net churn, and then I would say days in cycle, like how quickly are the deals that get put into the CRM closed? Because ideally now you're almost doing like what partners used to do. I remember when I'd run like global partner networks inside the CRM, and I'd be like, all right, guys, your pipeline's terrible, but you always meet your numbers. Because you put in basically closed deals, right? But in a sense, we should be kind of doing that, right? Like we shouldn't have to like think about this, like because we should be pushing all these things closer, because all of this like kind of agentic engagement and all this other stuff and these signals we're pulling out, we're finding the right deals. They should be fast, right? So days in cycle thing, or days in cycle, total days of opportunity to close, like that kind of thing. Those improvements that you should be seeing against baselines where we're kind of like all in this one human world of like how we used to do it, and then seeing it go there. I mean, there's a number. I actually just did a big idea report. You can find it on the Constellation website under me. If you find me and find it pretty recent, it was like 5 critical KPIs for go-to-market in the age of AI. So you can take a look at that. I cover a bunch of stuff there around, again, it's full journey too. Some of it's like pre-sale, some of it's sales, some of it's post-sale retention, that kind of stuff, customer success. So I cover, kind of try to cover the life cycle and what agents you can use to affect those positively, right? What, and the interesting thing about that report, not to dive, going too much of a tangent, but I basically named like 5 agents and how they go against these 5 use cases and work together. So you don't have to have like 1,000 agents to start to be successful and show, CEOs and CFOs that you're actually doing a good job with AI. You can use about 5 agents and affect 5 critical KPIs fairly well. So if you're watching this now, go to the Constellation site or and go check out. I think it's called like 5. I forget what I call it. It's a very wordy name, but it's like 5 critical KPIs to measure.
Fair enough.
Too long. It's almost it's the German in me, right?
Yeah. Well, there's that. Measuring go-to-market success of agentic AI. 5 critical KPIs. That's the title. Yeah. It's covering almost the whole.
Kafka was like, keep it short. Yeah.
So, well, maybe there should have been some agent to make it more punchy.
I should have ran that through Gemini or something. But
no, you probably ran it through Gemini. That's why it's that long. Okay, punch to Google here. But now that you have those 5, my God,
5 KPIs.
I didn't have enough coffee today. 5 KPIs. Now that you have them. So how does revenue intelligence help you to become a better self?
If I'm a seller, right? It's obviously serving me up the right deals. It's obviously serving me up the right things to sell. We used to talk about like 30 years ago almost. We were talking about next best offer and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
And they were terrible. They were terrible because they were random. There was barely enough data to even find any kind of affinities between who is this individual or account or whatever it is and the things that we're going to offer. Like there was no context, right? That's the thing. We have context now, right? And the importance of that is if I'm a seller, it's understanding prospects and customers in ways that I'm doing less legwork to both engage, offer, discount, cross-sell, get promotions that are hopefully win-win, right? And that's the idea. Now, if I'm in RevOps again, right, it's quickening the pace of getting deals to the next level of approval, things like that, because it's like, okay, instead of manually going to a manager or going to these things, it's like, okay, well, let's understand this. Let's look at the history of the customer. What have they asked for in the past and what have we given them? So we don't have to have this negotiation back and forth. What are the red lines in their contract? Like I said before, things like that. So that, again, things that used to sometimes take like a 24-hour turnaround are now 24 minutes to hopefully 24 seconds, right? Getting that exponential productivity there, right? If I'm management, again, if I'm executives, I'm looking at, a new era of dashboards that are really telling me what I should be doing, not at the level of the deal level and where the pipeline is, but it's like, how do I fundamentally change like the DNA of my company to think differently because of what our customers, who they really are, what they really like, how they really like to engage, what they're really buying, that type of thing. So you can really get to that, unlock that strategic value that was really difficult and almost impossible to do before, where dashboards told you really important things. Now it's telling you really important things to do, which is different, right? And I think that's the kind of things that the revenue intelligence can tell you. And it can start to, as you get really advanced with this, again, it can start to tell you how to build out your commission structure for the salespeople that becomes shared across the organization, right? So because marketing isn't really compensated for the most part on revenue. It's lead conversion, but lead conversions has something, but not everything. It's a dotted line to revenue, right? So how do you start to get these non-dotted lines where people are actually invested in making sure that the leads that are interested convert and then turn into deals, that the customers that we have, because if I'm an AE and it's like, well, that's customer success's thing for the renewal. It's like, no, how do we optimize that renewal and NDR, net dollar retention, so that we all share in that, right? So it's like, how do we start to like build out compensation and incentive plans that actually become cross journey or full journey, rather than like, okay, well, here's the sales guy's commission and here's what the quota is for the CSM. And how do we marry that in a much more strategic way so that they're helping each other, not kind of living in their own silos, right? So that's the kind of things that revenue intelligence can unlock if deployed and managed and strategically operated.
A little earlier, you mentioned workflow. So far in this whole explanation, I didn't see much explanation of the role of workflow in the whole thing.
Because it's becoming, I think, we used to think of workflow as like this thing. It's not. It's part of it now. It's in the fabric, right? Like, and that's the cool thing about agentic, right? What is agentic? Is workflow on steroids, right? I mean, that's really what it is, right? And it's we don't need to write the workflows anymore. They kind of write themselves, or we describe them, and then it does it, and then we tweak it as it goes. We're not, I remember when we first, like, again, just not to bring back too many weird sugar memories and have flashbacks here. Like when we started doing like advanced workflow and you had a visual environment and it would test it for you and all that. That was still in like what took me like hours to do, days to doing that, to build like the simplest thing of like send the email. If 3 days, now I can just say that in 5 seconds and it builds it, right? So it's all workflow, right? It's all ball bearings, the whole joke. But it's everything, right? It's just so inherently part of it that we don't think about it, right? Which is great because the workflow optimization and design it used to be a pain in the ass, especially when it came from disparate data sources, disparate apps, right? Now that's becoming easier and easier because it's like, hey, I just mentioned this app and it knows how to call it. It knows the API. It knows all that stuff and it pulls all the stuff. So, workflows, it's a wonderful afterthought, right? That it's getting.
You just ripped apart the value proposition of ServiceNow.
No, I'm not saying that. No, because again, I'm not ripping apart. I'm saying how ServiceNow is and now Assist and the things that it does. makes ServiceNow interesting in 2026, right? Because that's what, because now you can do that, right? What made ServiceNow expensive and unwieldy, now you can do it even more powerfully because AI is there, right? And you still have that great data foundation, right? And they've bought a, data world or whatever, they're doing the right things. Don't, I don't think, I think ServiceNow knows what it needs to do, right? I think
yanking the chain doesn't only work for vendors, also for analysts.
No, but seriously, I mean, because go ahead, Rob.
It is that you described that that little monster coming along that is called GDPR. The horror scenario, you described the fabulous world with all the data, HR, ERP, and now the magic with the AI is coming through the door. If I'm the GDPR responsible person, I would have nightmares.
Right.
How to keep this in a proper, ethical, and privacy conformation or compliance approach. What is your guess on that one?
This is the opportunity to vendors in the age of vibe coding and DIY, and I can do all this because it's so easy in AI, to continue to prove value and say, hey, we've got that, right? I mean, it's not easy to do it yourself with that stuff. So if the vendor can say, we've got the guardrails, we've got the security, we've got to work with us to make sure that you're staying compliant, that's a way for vendors to remain relevant and creating value, right? Because it's real easy to start going off the rails when you do it yourself. So I think there's these little things that we're not. It's like just because you can doesn't mean you should. And I think that's the big. I mean, that's one of the biggest things of AI that like people don't seem to be just saying constantly, because it's like, I could have built my own data center and created like a SaaS infrastructure for like all my global location, but I didn't, because I trusted SaaS vendors to do it. Right. It's the same idea, right? I mean, it's kind of the same idea. Because again, that's another thing around data and privacy and how am I going to do a global SaaS? I don't want to do it myself, right? So I think that just because you can doesn't mean you should. Really comes into play here with residency, compliance, sovereignty, and all these things. And again, like when you look at vendors like Zoho, who are answering that question very well by saying, like live in our environment because it's safe, because we built it locally. And you're not gonna, your data is not gonna touch data from other countries if you don't want it to, right? Your data is not gonna touch anything you don't want it to, right? Let us handle that, right? So the more that vendors can keep the onus on them and not raise the confidence level of the end user organizations, the better. Because
the Indian tiger keeps data ethics and the privacy compliancy very, very high in their priority list. Yeah. That is something I agree totally. Yeah.
Now, looking at privacy and the data and intelligence, yes, you want to keep it yourself, but isn't then the ultimate way of keeping it yourself while going back to on-premise and doing all your processing, including revenue intelligence there?
No, but the more you can consolidate the amount of systems that are generating, consuming, storing, data, and taking and where you take action upon them, obviously that's the less the better, right? Because that's both from a cost and performance, not just privacy and other compliance issues, right? Look, at the end of the day, there's some customer data that is always important to keep private, to keep safe and all that. But a lot of the metadata and the operations and the aggregate that we're learning from to make this AI work isn't anything that would be terrible if it wasn't in your total control, right? I mean, it becomes anonymized, it becomes aggregate, it becomes all these things. So there's I think people, I don't want to say like private, people will say, oh, security is an illusion, privacy is an illusion, blah, 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 when it comes to tech. And maybe you're right. But I do think in a B2B situation, one of the things that's always kind of overlooked is that even with GDPR, even with all these other things, most of the time, for most industries, these people have given you their information. They want to work with you. It's nothing like it's the address of a business that you can find in a phone book. You know what I mean? Like what is it's it's not crazy sensitive information. And I'm not trying to downplay that idea that privacy and data control and guardrails that are important, but I think we have almost a luxury in B2B to be able to delve into AI and other things, especially in aggregate and other things that we don't have in B2C, right? And that there's not those constraints. So I think, and my focus on B2B, I'm just like, look, most of the GDPR stuff is like you've got a 6-month window if you've ever had a contact with this person. And that usually refreshes if you actually do good revenue intelligence to have a revenue related interaction that you can, no matter which side it starts from. So you create this ongoing kind of relevancy cycle that means, like I'm almost free from GDPR constraints because we're actually having relevant contextual conversations that they've opted into. So it doesn't, so if you're doing your business right, engaging with your customers on a good basis, these things become almost meaningless. But that's, that's a very, very blasé statement. Well,
Putting that on a slightly different footage. If I'm looking at those bigger vendors, they're all using some AI of sorts. Now they are quite successful, means all of their customers are using the same AI of sorts. Means none of them at the end of the day can get a relevant advantage out of it because they're all using the same shit. So how to cope with that?
Well, like I said, look what Zoho's planning to do. I mean, they haven't really announced this. I'm assuming this is what they're doing. But if you build out, especially again, when you've got everybody inside a SaaS environment, so you've got tons of aggregate data that you can then anonymize and learn from and train, creating small and mid-sized language models that are specialized for industries and use cases are how you're going to differentiate. Because if you're just white labeling the generic AI, like you said, you are non-differentiated, non-commoditized, not driving value. Because again, it's like, what's the benefit? Oh, that it's on the side of the app I pay for. And if those get more and more commoditized, then like, what's the point? Like, I can just go direct and spend less money if I just go direct to Anthropic or OpenAI. So you have to start to take this and learn from what we've learned by phase one of like, we want the copilot, we want all this here, we're integrating this in the data, but it's got to get more specialized, it's got to get more verticalized, it's got to drive value and have outcomes that are measurable, right? So I think that's the thing, right? Because kind of like what I talked about, like with what Zoho's doing its own hardware, doing its own thing. I mean, they might even build their own GPUs, who the heck knows, right? But and they can do it, right? By creating an AI environment that they own in a good way. It offers highly specialized, highly effective, highly accurate results, and at a price that they're not having to pay someone and then try to get value on top of that, right? They can so someone's got to do interesting things here, and I think Zoho is one of the ones to do it. Because again, like you said, otherwise it's all commoditized, homogenized, the same stuff, right? And that's not going to move the needle in terms of people being excited about what they're paying for, because then it becomes why do I pay this much for this when it's I can get this at this minus blank. It's like you're almost forcing people back to a paradigm of tabbing. I couldn't paste this into this.
Let's put vendors like Zoho out of the equation for a second.
Yeah.
And look at customer companies. In a world where context or specialized data matters a lot, I'm looking at smaller customer companies. They don't have a heck of a lot of data. Well, it's highly specialized, but it's not a heck of a lot. So they, by definition, then are not really able to work off AI.
I wouldn't say that
unless it's general AI.
No, I mean, I would disagree. I would say that I would put it this way: it's the data that they are creating, because it's the kind of data that everyone's creating, has value, and they need to unlock that value in different ways, right? And you don't necessarily need a generic AI layer even to do it. It's like, okay, well, if I if I leverage the information and signals from my Zoom interactions, and whether I'm using Zoom's revenue accelerator or not, trying to keep this in the frame of revenue intelligence, right?
Yeah.
But at least I get that stuff in those signals and I put it either into my CRM or some other system of record / system of action, whatever you want to call it today, right? I can gain value from that, and that's AI. That's like AI value that I'm getting. But I don't necessarily need to have some like big open AI relationship or Anthropic and using Claude, because I'm probably not actually generating code on any constant basis, right? I am probably, have AI in most of the tools that I use anyway. So they can pull the signals, they can do those things. And again, the workflow, right? The agent to agent, the point to points that happen there, they can do the handoffs and that can happen, right? So I think they're going to use AI. They can use it differently. And I think in a way, sometimes a little more nimbly or just a little more around jobs to be done, rather than taking this like big generic broad swath, like we need to have like an AI vendor, right? No, I don't think you do. There's going to be AI in every vendor that you have, right? So that you have a relationship with. So I think that's the difference there for those smaller guys.
Okay, as the hour is about to end, my God, already.
Yeah.
Always fast.
Fast.
Time flies.
Pink Panther, right? So wer hat an der Uhr gedreht in German?
Yeah.
Who turned the clock? So till recently, we always did something like famous last words. We've changed that a little to what we call a lightning round. Quick question, quick answer. 5 of them.
Okay.
Not like all Jeffy. Stupid questions and snappy answers.
Yeah, right.
But we hope that we did some smart thinking.
Yeah, I will.
Or OpenAI did. We won't disclose, or we won't confirm or disconfirm. Yeah. So number 1, ban or keep. If there's one celebrated metric that you'd ban, which one would be it, and which one would you replace it with?
Oof, that's a tough one. I would say one of the call volume, and I would actually tie that to outcome, right? So try to trace and because I would do like 1 question surveys after. So I would try to get out of call volume per CSMs and for customer support and things like that. I don't think the amount of calls you make, it's same thing as sales calls. The amount of sales calls you make is not going to be effective for BDRs and even salespeople. We're in an age of quality over quantity.
Okay, and what the replacement would be outcome as measured by?
I mean the measure outcome, I would say I for like sales, I would actually just say instead of saying how many calls did you make, I would say like opportunities created in period, because around that, like, so how are you better fishing rather than just broadcasting.
Okay. Now, what's the most overrated revenue technology feature in, let's call it 25 and not 26?
Overrated?
Overrated, yeah.
I mean,
hey, we got him really thinking.
Call summaries and things like that, or because they've just become so like everybody's got it. So I wouldn't say it's and everybody kind of went in for that, like that. It's like, well, here's the summary, and it's like, well, I was on the call, I kind of know what happened. It's nice to have the bullets, but without next actions, the summary is kind of like, oh, well, so what? Yeah.
One of your former employers, Support Logic, was one who helped using the knowledge of the call to go for the right attitude and support.
Yeah, so, give me sentiment, give me other things. Don't just give me a summary. I was on the call. I know what happened.
Yeah, that's fine.
Now, if we are talking about signals out of customer success into that add value to revenue intelligence, which one would it be that you would add into the scope of signals to be measured?
Well, one of the things is where, customer success is what I would call, one thing that's interesting that always gets overlooked are like kind of like product signals, like where if you're whether it's a product or service, whatever it is, because a lot of people think about like, well, am I going to churn? Am I going to buy more? But it's sometimes like, how do I share again across the entire organization what people like and don't like about the product itself? Because again, it's like we think about the relationship, but then it's also like, well, how are they using the product? What do they do? You know, those types of things. So how do we get these very like, plain language descriptions of what's going well with their deployment, what's not, that kind of thing, which can then go into like help roadmap and help all those types of things. So I think those are one of the things that get ignored the most, that need to be cherished and uncovered, because they help the entire org strategize better for the future.
Okay, agentic UI use cases. Which one, in the light of revenue intelligence, which one would you fund and which one would you stop right now?
For agentic AI in the US, I mean,
agentic AI use cases benefiting or not benefiting revenue intelligence. Which one to start and which one to stop?
I mean, if you're an organization that hasn't deployed anything, I mean, 100% start creating like a renewals agent that at least like collects everything about your customers and gives you either, whether they're CSMs or AEs, whoever handles that, gives them complete dossiers about the customer at certain intervals, not just around the QBR, so that you can be more proactive and then creating alerts. I mean, that's one. I mean, one I would stop. I don't think any I would stop, because I don't think any of them are bad. I think they all, I don't think there's any that are doing something we shouldn't be doing. I don't think we're inventing agents to do things that we shouldn't be doing. If anything, they're doing things that we can't do at scale. So I would say none, really.
Perfect.
I would like to ask the last one for a friend, so to say. Name the 3 revenue intelligence KPIs you would put on a CCO's or CRO's dashboard.
I would do, like I said, I would do deals most likely to churn. I would do top expansion opportunities for the quarter. And then I would do it. The higher overarching one is like NDR trending, like where's our net dollar retention trending? Because that's going to be most important. And then there's a bunch. I mean, there's a bunch more. I mean, and the great thing is that they can be built and they can change. You shouldn't necessarily even have to have a dashboard anymore. It's more like, what question am I asking right now, and what are the visualizations that you want to provide for me? And that's it. Your dashboard needs to be completely fluid and change almost by the minute if you're at executive level.
Okay, thanks, Martin. We are over time. You did well. in another show, I would say you survived the hot seat. Thanks again. Also,
always a great time. Thanks for having me, guys. I appreciate it.
Thanks also to the audience, and maybe you tune in next week when we are talking to Michael Wu and John Reed and are getting back into our great AI debate, which will be fun.
That should be good.
So far, it was fun.
Michael's one of the OGs. He's been doing it forever. So yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And John is one of the big thinkers.
John's been the biggest curmudgeon forever. So it's like, that's a great balance.
Hey, that's Josh. That's Josh.
Yeah. But that goes way before AI. I mean,
that's true. Yeah.
It was like an ERP curmudgeon. Yeah. So.
Okay. So thanks a lot. And well, let's meet again next week, live or online.
Thanks, guys.